June 1665. Inside a claustrophobic Mughal tent, a Maratha warrior signed the most agonizing document of his life. The Treaty of Purandar forced Shivaji to surrender 23 of his hard-won forts. He was even forced to hand over his 8-year-old son as a hostage to the Mughal court. This historical reality sits in stark contrast to the version of Shivaji taught in schools today. Most textbooks present a sanitized, invincible warrior god who never tasted defeat or felt the weight of a forced compromise. Stripping away the folklore reveals a far more interesting genius. His real power was rooted in a human mind capable of swallowing intense humiliation to protect the long-term survival of his people. Shivaji relied on ice-cold pragmatism and a level of institutional vision that transformed a regional rebellion into a sustainable state. His ultimate survival skill was psychological resilience, the ability to absorb a crushing loss in the present to ensure his movement lived to fight another day. The geopolitical odds were stacked against him. Compared to colossal empires, Shivaji's Pune holdings were a tiny speck. To counter this, he weaponized the terrain. He drew massive imperial columns into the Sahyadri mountain bottlenecks, where his small, mobile units flanked them with precision. He proved this at Pratapgarh by luring the massive Bijapur army into the dense forest. In those woods, the enemy's heavy cavalry and superior numbers became a liability, allowing the Marathas to dismantle a much larger force. Even his peaceful meetings were calculated for survival. When meeting the Bijapur general Afzal Khan, Shivaji wore hidden chainmail and carried a concealed tiger claw weapon. When the general attempted to stab him during an embrace, the armor held, and Shivaji's hidden counterstrike ended the threat instantly. He used the same audacity to strike the Mughals at home. He and a small group of soldiers snuck through an entire army to reach the bedroom of the Mughal general Shaista Khan in the middle of the night. These weren't just lucky raids, they were intentional psychological strikes. By reaching the most secure generals in their sleep, Shivaji shattered the myth of imperial invincibility, forcing massive armies to operate in a state of constant fear. Shivaji also knew when to stop fighting and start writing letters. Years before Purandar, when his father was captured by Bijapur, Shivaji didn't launch a suicide mission. Instead, he manipulated the Mughals into applying diplomatic pressure, forcing his father's release without firing a single shot. But the ultimate test of his ego came in 1666, during a journey to the Mughal capital, Agra. After being publicly insulted by the emperor, Shivaji was placed under house arrest behind these impenetrable stone walls. He was thousands of miles from home and completely trapped. He spent weeks feigning a severe illness, eventually gaining permission to send out large baskets of sweets for local charities as an act of penance. Once the guards grew bored of checking every basket, Shivaji and his son hid inside them and were carried right out of the city. Survival in Agra required a rare form of leadership, the willingness to use deception and play a long, patient game, rather than dying as a glorious but ineffective martyr. While he was outmaneuvering generals, he was also rebuilding the social contract. He dismantled the corrupt Jagirdari system, which allowed local lords to exploit farmers. To ensure accountability, he took direct control and paid his administrative officials in cash. He also established a legal code that enforced protection for all subjects, regardless of caste. His administration was built on merit, placing capable Muslim officers in high-ranking military and naval roles based on their skill rather than their background. This 17th-century French map shows the strategic depth of his thinking. While other rulers focused on land borders, Shivaji looked at the western coastline and saw that the real future threat was arriving via the European naval powers. He countered this by building a navy and constructing massive sea forts like Sindhudurg directly into the ocean, establishing a defensive line to protect trade and challenge foreign dominance. By combining economic equity, religious inclusion, and naval foresight, he established a template for statehood that redefined power in the Deccan. By 1674, Shivaji had the land, but he needed a legal foundation to protect his people from being treated as mere outlaws. He chose the hilltop fort of Raigad for a formal coronation, declaring his territory a fully independent, sovereign state.
As Chhatrapati, he began the work of cultural independence, commissioning a standardized dictionary to replace Persian administrative terms with native Sanskrit and Marathi words, giving the state its own cultural vocabulary. He then formalized the Ashtapradhan, a council of 8 ministers. This decentralized power into 8 specific departments, including finance and foreign affairs, and he established a law that these positions were based on talent, not hereditary succession. Crucially, he gave peasants direct ownership of their land through the Rayat Wari system. He even enforced strict military discipline that forbade his soldiers from taking even a blade of grass from a farmer without paying for it. These reforms did more than just manage a kingdom. They gave common people a tangible economic reason to defend the state. Swaraj transformed from a lofty ideal into a collective property right. When Shivaji died in 1680, the Mughal Empire assumed the Maratha movement would instantly collapse without its charismatic center. They were wrong. Despite the overwhelming size and wealth of the Mughal war machine, the Marathas successfully fought them to a standstill for 27 years. They survived because Shivaji had left behind more than just a memory. He left a decentralized system of over 360 forts. Each was governed by a 3-man committee from different castes, ensuring that no single trader could hand a fort over to the enemy. The Maratha resistance endured because Shivaji was a brilliant mortal who understood that a centralized god-king is a single point of failure, but a decentralized system of laws and forts is an idea that no empire can truly dismantle.